Now, John, it was a huge day for the Saints yesterday. I think some of them are still partying down there at the Saints disco, of course, with the signature of Nasiah Wanganeen-Miller. You've spoken exclusively with the president, Andrew Bassett, and he's basically admitted that the Saints are happy to take the punt on these monster deals of Naz and the De Koning one that could potentially follow. Yeah, that's right. Andrew was absolutely thrilled today. So he says, yeah, $2 million, it's absolutely a risk. And he says, yes, we're very happy to be one of the AFL's new disruptors. So the Nepo baby taunts, $3.8 million for two of these superstar players in Naz and Tom De Koning, and all of the lobbying that they've done against father-sons. Here's what he told the Herald Sun today. There's no way to win a flag without offending people. He was instrumental in the pitch last week. He flew up with Stephen Silvani, the club's football boss, or list boss. So there was this meeting at his Brighton mansion. Of course, he's the Seek.com co-founder. It was seen as razzle-dazzle, in his top hat trying to pitch to this young Indigenous kid. He says it was takeaway Japanese lunch in plastic containers, that Ross was in his sandals. He pitched the club's vision to him. He said, look, we don't get everything right, and they very much are trying to learn from their mistakes. So they're not saying that their pitch was flawless. He says that paying these two players, and that's an if they get TDK, is a necessary risk. He says, I think we've been scared as a football club to take risks, and we've been scared to upset people. There is no risk-free way to win a flag. There is no risk-free way to win a flag without offending people. So we're trying to offend people for all of the right reasons. The reasons we don't offend people is because we've been too nice on the bottom of the ladder. And as he said, the overwhelming message from the Security people is have a crack. I think that's what the fans, Lauren, are saying right now. It's a significant change in language, isn't it? As you say, we're here to offend, we're not scared to take risks. And even Ross saying that we will not be walked over. I mean, it can't be overstated, really. A lot of people were saying yesterday that this could potentially have all of the signs of being a landmark day for St Kilda Football Club. I mean, you wrote in today's Herald Sun, John, that it was as big as Darryl Baldock almost. But, Corbin, it's a shift in language, and it is the sort of thing that could shift a football club, but it is a risk. I mean, if they do land De Koning as we expect on these big dollars, we're looking at 20% of the salary cap here, so they are all chips in. Yeah, and we're a cookie cutter top league, aren't we? So if they do it and it's successful, expect other clubs to do it. If it doesn't work, we probably won't see it again for a long period of time. But it sort of reminds me a little bit of the Giants, where the Giants are obviously relatively top heavy, and that's a retention issue trying to keep people in Sydney. And then there's all these draftees that come through, and what it basically does is every time you pick someone out of the draft, it resets your salary cap. So you're paying them bottom dollar rather than up the top. And then if someone leaves, then the next guy gets paid a little bit more, and the structure flows on from there. So maybe it does force St Kilda's hand a little bit, that instead of going to the open market, maybe they go to the draft, get a few more kids in and keep the top end strong, and we'll see what happens in the off-season. So I love the risk profile, but as Naz's manager Ben Williams said today, it's extraordinary how quickly the salaries have escalated, and extraordinary when you compare it to the stars of the comp, who a lot of them are on between $1 million and $1.2 million. So what happens now? So the most underplayed played players in the competition, what do their managers do? So I look at someone like Jason Horne-Francis, who's on about $700,000. Thankfully, his manager is also Ben Williams. Or Nick Dacos, who right now is on $1 million. That will escalate a bit, but not extraordinarily so by the end of his contract. What happens here? Because if their managers all put their hand out and all say, I want a 50% pay rise, that club can't win a flag. Clubs like Geelong will say, no, you take our offer, otherwise move on. It's a really challenging thing for the AFL landscape, and that's why they're such an AFL disruptor. They'll have that with their own issues, with their own club as well. Mm. Well, they're obviously looming large when it comes to Tom De Koning, with that massive contract that could go with him. But we know that he'll likely get to Moorabbin, but there's still a lot of intrigue around their other tall, isn't there, in Rowan Marshall? We love reading the tea leaves here. We love trying to assess all of the available evidence, and then you try and think what happens now. So there's been a lot of property-related trade stories. Liam Baker, he bought a property in Perth and then he goes. Matt Rowell, he's bought a property in Melbourne and then he stayed. So we don't always get those right. This is the first haircut-related trade story, Corbin. Now, just stay with me here. So the spies down Geelong way are very aware of the fact that Rowan Marshall gets his hair cut down in Geelong very often. It's a long way to go for a trim. So my sources tell me that it turns out his brother Ollie Marshall plays for Newcombe in the Geelong League. So Rowan goes down there, he watches him, he gets his hair cut. We know that he, of course, I think New Zealand born, or at least heritage, but he's a Portland boy. So the Jungle Drums would say that he is headed to Geelong. The Cats are very much aware of the fact that he wasn't thrilled with the fact Tom De Koning was coming in. Ross Lyon is playing hardball. He says, basically, if you contact our players in contract, you're in breach. So it's just buckle up and enjoy the ride. If it is a trade scenario, it's going to be real downright messy.
categorically nasty, as Ross said. I can't wait.
I love it. Even the barbers are getting involved. We love this. Now, Liam Ryan might potentially be getting involved at Moorabbin too, these within St Kilda's sights.
His manager clapped back on social media today. He said he has not been offered a 4-year deal by St Kilda. He's been offered a 3-year deal on the trigger. So he could still get to 4 years. My understanding is it'll take 3 years plus to get him into the conversation about a trade. St Kilda's offered 3 in the trigger. He'd be paid as much as $600,000. He was very keen to get to Port Adelaide if Naz got there. Essendon's offering 2 in the trigger. So I would say right now everything looks like it's heading to St Kilda. So it's another player there, as well as Leclerc and, of course, re-signing Naz.
Yeah, we know, as you told us a few months ago, they have had their sights set on becoming a real destination club in the Indigenous space. Auntie Katrina Amon, obviously running the development program there, and Bradley Hill, as we understand, an instrumental figure in keeping Naz.
But you have spoken to Jamarra Ugle-Hagan after the dramas of the weekend. What did he tell you?
I have. So this story has gone on Code Sports just a short time ago. And Jamarra Ugle-Hagan, as you say, speaking for the first time since he was outside Love Machine nightclub on Sunday evening when a firearm was discharged. Now, Jamarra, as we know, spoke to Victoria Police on Monday. There is no insinuation that he is involved in any way, and he's being treated by police as a witness. But he has spoken for the first time about the experience and just how harrowing it was. He says that it went off about a metre away from him, that he was lucky not to be hit. Conceding as well, which I think has been the narrative from a lot, that he probably should not have even been there at 2:30 in the morning. So he is probably the first person to admit that, but talks about the effect that it has had on him mentally. He's been incredibly anxious since the incident, and I think no one could blame him given his version of events, as you say, that he was getting into an Uber at the time. He was there with a group of people outside the nightclub when, as Victoria Police have alleged, a scuffle broke out. A firearm was discharged nearby, but he is absolutely maintaining that he has had absolutely no involvement in this incident. And I think harbours a little bit of frustration. It was my sense that he is, of course, named in these scenarios. The way that he put it, he was with a group of about 20 people. There's another 100 people sort of in the nightclub, but it is his name that's obviously out there in all of this. So we know that the nightclub itself has been involved in a number of violent attacks over recent weeks as well. I mean, it is another chapter, as we know, in what has been a lengthy saga with Jamarra Ugle-Hagan and all of his delicate personal issues. But I think no one can discount the fact at the moment that he has expressed certainly how he is feeling about being there on Sunday evening when this played out, and I guess the mental toll that it's had on him.
Extraordinary story, extraordinary quotes. Unfortunately, he just keeps finding himself in really troubled positions, and unfortunately with people who bring trouble upon him as well. So the clubs out there that are looking for him in the trade period might think there's a bitter boy who cried wolf about this. So the Dogs are in such an impossible position. They've got to pretend that everything is going well with Jamarra because they want to trade him at the end of the season. As soon as those clubs overlook him, if they do, they'll try and find a way to get rid of that $900,000 contract, and that's the challenge. So a club can terminate a player's contract if they've engaged in serious or repeated misconduct. Being in the vicinity of a gunshot is not that. You know, having your car taken unwittingly and involved in a crime is not that. They could recoup some of the money from all those missed training sessions, but you know, they've worked with the AFL and they've allowed him at times to go and access the mental health care we all believe that he understands that he needs. So they'll hope someone trades for him, and then at the end of this situation, I think the only scenario for them, if he is still on their list, is to say, here's your payout. You might be worth $800,000 or $900,000. Here's the $500,000. Because, Corbin, he could be Taron Thomas in a heartbeat. You don't have a birthright to play AFL football. As extraordinarily talented as you are, at some stage the penny has to drop for him, and it hasn't done so dating back, let's face it, 10 or 11 months now. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I think we need to hear a lot more from Jamarra before we even start talking about potential trades or what it would look like for the Dogs to offload him, what other clubs would be interested in him. And I think that's the first bit that the new club would take on board too. So if you were interested in Jamarra, you'd want to sit down and have a conversation with him. And I must admit, I love that we've heard from Jamarra. I feel like we actually haven't heard that much from him. He's basically sat down and done a podcast, and outside of that, we've heard very little from him, too much at all, across the course of the year. So we've heard lots of reports. We obviously know that he went away to the health retreat. He's come back. He made attempts to play. He had family bereavements. But we've heard a lot of people speaking on his behalf. I actually think it's nice to hear from Jamarra himself, and I actually think that is going to be the key point going forward. The more we hear from Jamarra, the more we see him present and see that he's ready to go to play footy. I actually think that's going to help his worth going forward in terms of finding a new home if that's what he wants, if he wants to play somewhere else next year, or play in the league again. He's got a year to run with the Dogs.
Yeah, and he's going to have to give really compelling testimony about how he can separate himself from some of those people. I think we all believe that he's improved his own behaviour, but when he is involved with those people, that is a challenge. The list of players who have been really troubled and moved on to another club and had roaring success is pretty short. Jesse Hogan, it took him 2 clubs. Went to Fremantle. That was a catastrophe. Eventually got himself right with a very small single-year deal at GWS. So we hope he can be in that category. Right now, there's a lot of doubts.
Yeah, there is. And I think a lot left to run in this story. Obviously, incredibly refreshing and honest to hear from him today. But even in speaking to a number of clubs that I know have made inquiries about him, you know, particularly this year over the journey, I don't think any are particularly warming or cooling based on what's happened over the last few months. I think they're all very, very keen, was the sense I got, that, you know, this has still got a long way to run. As we know, trade period is still, you know, what is it, another 2 months away. So they're very, very happy to sit, you know, let the powder settle on this and just wait and see what plays out, because so much water to still go under the bridge.